Hey guys, what's going on? This is Dice Squad. I am Marshall Dice, known as Adam Campbell.
General Dice, Todd Evangelista.
And we are live here at Origins Game Fair 2016 with...
Timothy Zahn, who's not an officer of anything.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Mr. Zahn.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And you're a famous author, so that is you're not an officer like we are. No, we're not even officers. We're fake. But we have a crowd here of people off camera that you can't see. And hey, everybody, it's Timothy Zahn! Yay!
A cast of thousands, as he used to say in the Bozo Show.
Yes,
So,
and all fans.
How's Origins been for you so far?
Origins has been great. We've this is the second day. We've got 2 more to go. I'm always having to pace myself on these 4-day conventions.
How many years have you been here?
4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah.
They foolishly some years ago said, come whenever you want to, as often as you like, and we've taken them up on it. So, sitting at this table, going off and playing games occasionally, chatting with people, it's become kind of a tradition. So, eventually they'll notice, hey, he's still kicking around, and throw me out. But for the moment, at least, I think we're here for the duration.
All right. Good to have you, too.
Well, thank you.
Now, how many years have you been at Origins there, Marshall?
This will be marked 5 years.
5 years? And I think we agreed I was here since 2001, so 15 years for me. And it's gotten bigger every year. And that's why I'm the general, because 15 years. I put in my time.
Yep.
So, Mr. Zahn, what have been some of your new books here at the convention this year?
Well, we have... The Manticore Ascendant series I'm doing with David Weber. First 2 of those books are out. The third is waiting for David to clear his schedule enough to vet it and do his part of it. I have a new collection of short fiction, Pawn's Gambit, the Soul Minder series of stories, Quadrail series. I have a modern-day techno thriller called Cloak. I'm doing a final Cobra book, a 9th Cobra book that's being worked on. Next November, I have a StarCraft book coming out, StarCraft Evolution.
Ooh.
Based on the game, or actually coming after the game, the final game module they've done. So that should be fun. That was a lot of fun to write.
Can we get a little bit of what the story is going to be with that new StarCraft book?
It's picking up a few years after. I'm drawing a blank on the last game they did. Legacy, something like that.
Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, Legacy of the Void. There we go. I keep going to Legacy of the Force, and I know that's not right. Legacy of the Void picks up a few years after that. We've got some major characters, but also a group of 5 original characters I've come up with who are needing to investigate a planet that the Protoss burned off, incinerated some years back, that is now flourishing full of life, and nobody's quite sure what's happened.
Now
so they've gone down to investigate.
Now, for some of our viewers, we just want to clarify, these are video games, not board games.
Yeah.
And is the cast of like classic Trek in there, or no? Or how about next gen?
Classic Trek.
Yeah.
You out.
What?
No Trek. StarCraft, not Star Trek.
Oh, StarCraft. That was why I was confused.
And there are also
StarCraft is
Klingons.
also a video game.
Yes.
And does not have Kirk or Spock. Or does it? Spoilers!
I do not believe they are going to insert Kirk or Spock into this book anywhere along the line.
So,
I think you should demote him to Colonel.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, Colonel.
So, Mr. Zahn, going back a little bit, I'd like to know, with your, because you've been an author now. How many years have you been in the field of being an author?
I started full time in 1980.
Okay.
So over a third of a century.
So have you always been? Have you always been a fan of writing, even like back in the 80s?
Well, I started I was a fan of writing. I was writing in the 80s,
Yes,
so
sir.
yes, trick question. I got started in 1975. November, I watched a bad TV show, turned it off, and said I could write better than that. So I sat down and wrote a story over the next couple of weeks. Wasn't very good, but it showed how much fun writing could be. So I worked at it for a hobby for a few years. Sold a story, sold another story. Left the physics department of University of Illinois when my project wasn't working and my advisor died. So started writing full-time in 1980, and so far it seems to be working okay.
Now, you're primarily known for the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
Would you say that your other work is more hard sci-fi or like soft sci-fi? For the ones who don't know, hard sci-fi is really, since you have a physics background, it would have a real basis in science. Soft sci-fi would be more the soft sciences, like psychology or just, Captain Video.
It's probably leans more to the hard science, with the caveat that I don't spend pages just going into the physics of something or the chemistry or whatever. But yeah, I mean it is more technologically oriented probably than it is just psychology or sociology. So my physics background has taught me a lot about how to understand science and tech, and so therefore how to create my own and to make it feel real rather than something. Hopefully it feels like it's something real rather than something just put together, invented.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Now, would you say you were more influenced by other authors or your knowledge of science?
I mean, the knowledge of science is a background type of thing. I mean, it's part of what I use to build the world. But yeah, I mean, I've always looked to other authors as my goals or my influences. When I started out, I picked 4 of them: Larry Niven for hard science, Theodore Sturgeon for dialogue and characterization, Keith Laumer for plot twists and humor, and then the thriller writer Alistair MacLean, Guns of Navarone, Where Eagles Dare, for plot twist, hard-boiled detective type, sardonic voice type of thing. So those were my 4. Okay, I want to be as good at science as Niven, or portraying the science anyways, Niven, etc. So those were, but I'd read everything from Paul Anderson to Roger Zelazny, so a lot of influence over the early years of my life.
Sounds like my bookshelf.
Yeah.
Paul Anderson to Zelazny.
Yeah.
Now, I know one of your big books here is Star Wars: Heir to the Empire.
Correct.
Now, back when, after Return of the Jedi, because there was no more Star Wars. Now in 2015 we have The Force Awakens. But with Heir to the Empire,
I think there were 3 other Star Wars movies, but I'm not sure. And I don't want to say anything because I already got caught up on that Star Trek thing.
Well, there was Star Wars, there's Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, but...
You've heard of those, right?
Yes. Yes, I have.
But how did you get involved in creating, because this was, up until now, that this was kind of like the sequel to Return of the Jedi.
Well, I never thought of it as episodes 7, 8, and 9. I thought of the trilogy as episodes 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. Because what Lucas had always talked about was skipping a generation, doing a new generation for each of the trilogies. So I knew this was fitting into the gap if he ever decided to do prequels and sequels.
Right.
So, I never thought of it as the next episode. However, what I got was the first chance to write Star Wars after Return of the Jedi, which meant I could use all the major characters. There'd been Splinter of the Mind's Eye and the Han Solo Adventures, the Lando Calrissian books, but all of those were prequels, well, except Splinter. So by definition, they could not involve all the characters who met in A New Hope. So I was the first novelist to be allowed to go past the movies. So I had the full cast to work with. I was given 3 books, which means I get 300,000 words worth of story I can tell and character development and such.
Right.
So it was, the opportunity, obviously, of a lifetime.
Right. And the characters that you created then were influential on the next generation of writers too.
Yeah. Some of my characters became so iconic they were stuck with them whether they liked it or not.
And I think the cool part, because a couple years ago, I had purchased your book, and I think the nice part is that with your 20th anniversary book, you offer like commentary within the pages of like your writing process, why you chose this, or why Luke did that, or Leia, or Thrawn, or anything like that. I thought that was really cool to like get into like your mind of what you were thinking when making this story.
Well, when we agreed or decided to do a 20th anniversary edition, we all knew I want the original. I don't want to do any changes or anything else because it's historical. It's a historical book. But we wanted to give people a good reason why they should have this as well as their original version or whatever. So we wanted to put some extras in. I had offered to do a new novella at the end, which they agreed on. We put that in. But then they came back and said, we'd like you to annotate it as well. And that hadn't occurred to me, but the more I thought about it, I thought, oh, that's a cool idea.
Right.
So I went and pulled back all of the big folder I had of all correspondence and such. This was pre-easy email, so a lot of our stuff was typed and in letter form, rather snail mail and such. So I had all the documentation. I could go back through and read what we'd been thinking, what we'd been talking about, what we'd been arguing about. And so it was a simple matter of then look through all of that, start rereading the book. Okay, here's where I thought this, throw in the director's commentary, as it were. So that was a lot of fun. It came out very well. We had hoped to do the other 2 books as well, but the initial sales weren't quite up to whatever Del Rey wanted, so they were holding off. And then came the sale to Disney and the new movies, and the decision not to do anything else in the Legends line of books. So probably we'll never see the other 2 books. I do know the stories I want to tell, the additional stories. So I mean, always in emotion. The future is. So you never say never. I'm available. They know where to find me if they ever want me to do more Star Wars. My agent periodically pokes the editor at Del Rey and says, Tim's available. He could do another book for you. And she says, yeah, we know. So,
Now,
we'll wait. Well, we appreciate it here.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you.
And you talked about letters going back and forth and what you added. I didn't think on those original 3 that you had much editorial interference or guidance or whatever.
Well, there's always, some, especially when you've got a 2-headed editor, when you're doing somebody else's universe. You've got Lucasfilm and, at that time, Bantam. There were a few things they chopped they didn't like in my outline, and then 3 or 4 pages, single-spaced, of things they were questioning or wanted changed in the final manuscript. But every time pretty much every time I've done a Star Wars book, we have caught any major changes in outline state. And so everything in the final manuscript has been small, easily changed, find a compromise type of thing. And the great thing about Lucasfilm is they've always been open to discussion. They've never said, you can't do this because we're Lucasfilm and you aren't. They would say, we don't think this is appropriate or this works. If I can then come back and say, okay, it doesn't violate anything we know from Star Wars, and I need to do it for this, and this reason, I can persuade them. They will look at it and say, okay, that makes sense. Okay, you've convinced us.
Right.
So it's been a good process working with them. As I say, this is why I have 10 Star Wars books out, not 3. Because if they'd been really rotten to work with, I would have ended after the Thrawn trilogy. But it's always enjoyable and fun to go back and work with them again on a new novel. So we will hope.
And the expanded universe books, though, they had a lot of editorial input. You can't do this. You can do this. You know, you have to make sure that it's like this. And the last book that you didn't write was like that. But I thought they just kind of let you go. You know,
they oversaw everything that was done, but typically it was we'd like you to do another Star Wars book. Pick an era where you want it to write in, when do you want to deliver it, and then tell us what you want to do. So I would, rather than saying, here are the 5 plot points, the 4 characters we want you to put in, they would say, tell us what you want to do, and we'll tell you if it's fine or if we need to tweak it or whatever. So I've always gotten to propose the storyline to them. And I had one book where they didn't like the outline at all and made me redo the whole thing, and it came out a much better book because of that. So they've been very, very good to work with, and I've enjoyed, as I say, I've enjoyed working with them. Del Rey is, the editors there are great as well. So, as I say, hoping I'll get a call at some point. But until then, I've got plenty of other work to do.
Now, do you have you're writing the StarCraft book?
Yes, StarCraft. Craft.
It's a computer game, General.
I think he's saying craft. But anyhow, so are you going to be allowed to use? No. Were they as hands-on as Lucasfilm was? Or are they just like?
You mean Blizzard Entertainment?
No. Lucasfilm did Star Wars. Let's compare them to the StarCraft
Blizzard people.
The Blizzard people.
It was largely, it was a different style. With Blizzard, what they did is invited me down for a Monday meeting.
Right.
They gave me a little bit of background. I had an hour or so with the lore people who have all the knowledge of StarCraft, and gave me the basics to get me up to speed. Then I sat down with some of the editors and the lore people, and they said, we're thinking this is kind of like what we'd like to do. Just the basics of, we want to do this kind of story. And we batted that back and forth, throwing in ideas for the next hour and a half or so. I went back to my hotel. I wrote out an outline the next day on Tuesday, sent it off to them that afternoon. They had me come back in Wednesday. They'd all read the outline at that point. We did some final tweaking, and then they basically turned me loose.
Wow.
So when the final manuscript was done, I had missed some stuff, some tonal things, some facts that had been in the Legacy of the Void that either they'd forgotten to tell me, or more likely I'd had such influx of information I just missed it. And so I had to tweak some of the characters, tweak some of the tone of the book. Relatively minor changes all, and we did one more round of even fewer changes, and then last 5 or 6 changes here. So with Lucasfilm, it was largely done with emails and letters and things back and forth. The idea of being able to go down to Blizzard and bat things around in real time was very helpful, very handy. Again, I had the basics of the outline in 2 days for them, rather than doing an outline, sending it out, have them cogitate and come back. So a different style, very similar level of oversight. Also very similar. We like your ideas. We like what you're doing here. Can you tweak this just a little bit type of thing?
It does seem like a system that works.
Yeah.
Now, with the StarCraft book, because I know going down to Blizzard, did you have access to Blizzard's archive of all their visual stuff and media stuff with StarCraft?
They gave me some of that. There's just so much I would never get through it in time, because I went down in November 13, about the 16th, mid-November, and the book was due by the end of February. So there was I did not have enough time to go through everything. So they gave me some of the visuals they thought I would need, gave me some summaries of characters and such, and you kind of what I would need, hopefully, and then when I did stuff and I'd missed something, then they filled in some more of that as well. But they gave me all the high points and all the basics, including images and screenshots and things of that sort that I could work off of. Most importantly, they took me to the swag room where I was able to get stuff for our son, who is a StarCraft fan. So,
well, now did you play the game with him?
No, our son played. I was never much into video games because, you know, I've got this writing to do, and I cannot afford to sit down the computer. Oh, it's 4 hours later. I haven't gotten any work done at all. So the family has to eat, you know, hunt and eat rabbit tonight or something.
But you said that when you're here at Origins, you do play games.
Yes,
what games do you play?
I do the enhanced game thing. That they have the guests or some of the guests join in a game.
Oh,
I did, Pandemic yesterday. That was fun.
Oh, Pandemic or Pandemic Legacy?
Pandemic, the original.
Okay. We know all about Pandemic. That was our episode 4, I think, of our show.
And I just finished, I guess in April, finished the Pandemic Legacy. Which we ended up playing 19 games of it. So.
Oh, okay. So you were familiar with that?
Yeah.
I've done the Star Wars games. I did one of the, I think it was a Shadowrun game last year. We'll wander around probably tonight after dinner and just see what looks good.
So you do role-playing games as well?
I've done a little role-playing game. Back in the 90s when West End Games had the Star Wars role-playing game, Peter Schweikhofer and I worked up 2 or 3 games that we would do as charity games at various conventions. He would run it. I would be one of the characters. The other characters, you know, bid money for the convention's charity to be players in the game, and those were a lot of fun. Those did very well.
Now, Fantasy Flight has the license for Star Wars role-playing game. Do you think you could ever do a make like an adventure and?
I can do almost anything if I'm asked to do it. I've not been contacted. No, it's the first rule of writing, I'm told, is if somebody says, can you write a game module for us, or can you write a novelization, or can you write this, your answer is, of course. And then you figure out after that how to do it. So I'm sure I could write a game module. Just I haven't been asked. If you're listening, I'm here.
But for all of our viewers out there, any advice? Because I know some people that approach us are like, "Hey, I got this great story idea, but I don't know how to, get it published, or I don't know how to make a great story." Do you have any advice for our viewers on what the process of writing a great story?
Writing is something you can learn by doing it. It's not something you have to go to school for, take classes with, necessarily do workshops, though all of those can be helpful. It's something, you're going to develop your style, you'll develop ways of how you plot, how you do dialogue, how you create characters, but the key is you have to keep writing. A lot of people would like to be writers but don't want to actually write because it's a lot of work. So the key advice is keep writing. Keep reading to see what you like about other people's styles and incorporate it. Keep reading so you can see what you don't like and make sure you avoid that. Work on your style, work on putting words together. As to how you get marketed or published these days, I frankly have no idea. It's been years since I've had to do that, and everything has changed since then.
Well, I think for our viewers, I think our viewers do write a lot. I don't think they go towards publishing, though.
Okay.
They're going to be blogging. They're going to create an adventure for their role-playing game. They do a lot of writing, but I don't think they... that maybe they care. They're trying to get that stuff out there and get it published and sit here at Origins at the Author's Corner.
Well, blogs and game modules are great. Nothing wrong with that. Our son does a little bit of game module, writing the adventures for his game group as well.
Right,
so,
right.
anything you can do, putting words on paper, words on computer, is good. It's good practice. It gets you going. If you decide you want to try to be published, that's the next step. But the key is keep writing. If you enjoy it, do it.
All right, cool. Okay. Well, Mr. Zahn, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
And from all of us here at Dice Squad, continuing our coverage of Origins Game Fair 2016, this is Marshall Dice Nose Adam Campbell.
Colonel Dice, Todd Evangelista. I got demoted.
Timothy Zahn, not an officer of anything still.
And we'll see you later, guys. Later.